Welcome everybody to another episode of the Case Specific Podcast. Today we have another RD episode. I'm joined here by lead dietitian, Sina. She is down at our new Tampa location and has been spreading the Case Specific word down south. Welcome, Sina.
Thanks. It's great to be back. I forgot how cold it was here.
Yeah. For those of you listening that aren't where we live, we are a Pittsburgh-based company. We've got a Raleigh office and a Tampa location, and our dietitians that live south both lived here at one point and ran away. And we're filming this in the middle of winter. And so Sina came back from, you've been in Tampa, 8 months now?
Just about.
Yeah, came back 8 months of warm weather to, just single digits and wind chills and all the reasons you probably left.
Yeah, to say the least. Yes.
Well, welcome back, and it's so good to have you. What do you think of the space? I know you've seen the clips and you've talked to the other RDs that have been on the show, but what do you think?
I like it. It's super homey.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm just sitting in my living room chatting.
It's super comfy.
Yeah.
That's what we were so excited about, is they do a great job here. So we were really excited when we first found it. It's been home. So we've got a lot of content to dig into today. As many of you know, if you're not first-time listeners, we're going to dig into our core 6 topics. We are going to let Sina be the lead on quite a few of them. She's got some good things to scream from the rooftop, and I'm going to throw some questions at her and see what she's made of. But we are going to kick off today with our MAHA Make America Healthy Again update, because it's less of a discussion and more of just an update, I think is a way to say it. And then from that update, I think we'll dig into the what we'll call the regularly scheduled programming and put you to work and make you wear your dietitian hat and give you a chance to talk to the audience at large. Sound good?
Let's do it.
Let's do this thing. So we have our first MAHA update. I'm actually pretty excited about this one. This is one of the first things we've actually seen in terms of action from Make America Healthy Again within the world of nutrition that has some potential expansiveness and some potential positive. But for us, from a biased perspective, it's the first thing that has objectively included dietitians very clearly. And that's been, it's huge.
You don't see that often. So anytime we see it, it's a
exciting
win for the dietitians out there.
And it's also something we've been banging on this show for a while, is there's been a lot of desire to untangle policy in the world of nutrition and health and wellness. And there's been a seeming absence in dietitian representation. And so whenever you see dietitians come in, immediately it's, hey, this is a roundtable discussion that's going to be relevant expertise and opinions from people that are in the industry. And if you're excluding dietitians, you're excluding one of the most important people at that table. And so the occurrence was the HHS did a one-time bolus funding of $61.9 million to the Head Start campaigns. And Head Start is a campaign group that basically it's a conglomerate of small local groups all throughout, focusing on kids from birth to 5 years old and their families, focusing on wellness and health and nutrition. And so it is a very targeted, surgical focused subset. This money is meant to go towards basically enhancing those services. And so what I was really excited about is there was sort of like a 50% enhancement of the actual services as sort of a goal. Some of the things, I actually wrote these down in case I forgot. Supplies. So getting things together for gardens, getting the kitchens nicer so they can do more cooking demos and cooking lessons. So really enhancing these systems at large. There was then 25% for location upgrades, adding breastfeeding rooms to the places, kitchen appliances, all of that good stuff. And then 25% education. And that is where they specifically said dietitian consultations and family workshops. And so,
love that.
Woo, gotta love that. And so it's neat to see that dollar allocation. It looks like it's going to go to a little over 100 programs around the U.S. These programs are going to be tasked with using these dollars to try and target the families with young children and improve their understanding of food, their access to food. And once again, we can hear where this is a very surgical attempt to try and influence and impact health. Some of the criticisms are, well, it's just a one-time bolus, but the way it's being promoted is as a trial year. And so think of it as a pilot, which for me personally, that's something that I'm actually very excited about, right? As we continue to say, we want to put dollars towards these really worthy, ideals and programs, but we want to make sure the dollars are doing what they're supposed to do. To put this money in, aim it and target it, and then have objective outcomes tied to it, it gives us a chance to prove it right or learn from it. And what I'm just most excited to see is after 10 months of beating the drum here of saying, hey, we understand you got the sledgehammer going and you're breaking up old policy, but what's the new? What's the new? Where's the reallocation? Where's the target? Where is the refocus? This is the first time we've actually seen action in a progressive way where dollars are being targeted at a very, very needed population and being targeted and dispersed in a way that is very clear and intentional. And it's going to give us a chance to see how does that move the needle, and then either fund it more because it did well, or adjust the funding or target it differently. And that'd be my big ask, because it's like, I want all of this to get better, but I also want to make sure we're learning our way forward. And it seems like this is the first attempt at that.
Yeah, I think either way we're going to learn something from it, right? Like you said, what worked really well and we can fund more so that more kids are learning this way and more families and more people have access to it, or what didn't quite work, but we know where it can get better.
How did it miss?
Yeah. And then we're getting better at those things and figuring out, okay, if we do this, it's going to be where we almost want it to be or where we want it to be.
Exactly. Learning our way forward. So really excited about it. Really curious to see where else surgical dollars get instilled, right? What are some of the other groups? And this is once again a call to action to dietitians that are listening. You guys are in the trenches, working a lot of these areas, working with these communities, engaging. If dollars are up for grabs to be targeted, that's going to come from basically screaming from the rooftops and making sure your mission is heard, but then also having extreme clarity on like what you're going to do with those dollars, not just from an empathetic, like do good way, but an objective, this is what we want to do with them and this is what we want to prove so that we can then do more of it, right? You've got to think of these community initiatives, unfortunately, as startups, which is to say like they need to not just be aimed at the right thing, but they also need to be succeeding in moving towards the right thing, because we can't continue to give money to a good idea that's not working. We need to adjust said idea. And so
like strategically impactful.
Beautifully said. I love that. That's a great phrase. Yeah. Strategic impact, right, is really what this kind of feels like. And like I said, it's felt like a lot of hypothetical and empty promises, but this is at least the first one over the bow. Hopefully there's more, and hopefully we continue to see that they're surgically placed in areas and regions where there's the biggest need. And so obviously more to come. So that's why I said less of a discussion, more of an update, but was very excited to see that. I have a feeling the dietary guidelines are going to be coming out here soon. So I think in the next 1 or 2 episodes, we're going to have a big Maha discussion. We're going to be breaking down whatever the newest DGAs are, but they keep postponing it every month. It's like, next month. And that's what a lot of this has felt like. It's the policy is always hurry up and wait. And so here we are waiting. But this felt really, really relevant. And to see dietitians listed for the first time objectively as a big part of it, that is a huge win. It means that honestly, dietitians listening, that it's working. Like speaking up, speaking out, making a pitch for your cause. Is it a worthy cause emotionally? Most likely. Is it an idea that actually has merit and can objectively deliver? That's the question. And that's where, in a world where there's a bunch of great ideas, we've got to find a way to fund as many of them as we can, but we've got to differentiate and try and pick the ones that are going to be the most impactful. So keep doing your great work out there in the communities. Keep speaking clearly about what you're doing. Don't be afraid to scream it from the rooftops, but also don't be afraid to have clear metrics of input and expected outcomes, because those are the things that in this modern day are going to get the support, get the backing, and also make the impact. So cool. Love it. I know you had said you have a little bit of a background in some of this we'll call Head Start-esque type stuff.
Yes, kind of. I worked in a lab when I was in college, and we did a lot of our experiments. I don't think that's the right word, but in the daycare centers on campus.
Very
so we
cool.
would go in and provide like a certain meal for kids who were in the study, and you could see what everyone else was eating around the same times, right? So just being able to hear that like more money will go into maybe not those specific ones, but other ones to, I don't know, improve the snack or make some of their playtime or education time around nutrition and starting them off earlier. That's going to be amazing. Or like learning to make something fun in school, and then you can take it home and make it with your parents and be like, hey mom, I learned how to make this today. Like this was so cool.
It's fantastic. It
Awesome.
translates.
Yeah.
And so when you hear gardens and cooking demonstrations, you immediately hear quality of food is likely going to be a piece of this discussion, exposure to things that may not be happening in the household or in the community at large. So there's some really good opportunity. And you said something that I think it's reminiscent across a lot of nutrition initiatives, which is to say a lot of nutrition initiatives started in the 60s and 70s, and they were trying to solve the problem of basically malnutrition in the United States. And malnutrition at that time was still largely, there was a segment of the population that was still starving. And fast forward to 2025 or 2026, we don't really have mass starvation in the United States as our core problem. We have micronutrient deficiencies and malnutrition with caloric excess. And so when we see the lowest income populations with the highest obesity rates, the original goal, which was give everybody calories, was a very worthy goal, but we've outgrown that goal. Now it's helping those calories be balanced with the right quality and the right balance. And so I always like to say we're trying to shift from get everyone fed to get everyone fed well. And that's a wonderful level up. Like to get people from a 0 to a 5 was a beautiful initiative, but now getting everyone from a 5 to a 7 or a 9 or a 10, a great initiative. And while I think that there's been sledgehammers used instead of scalpels for a lot of the undoings, it is to say the concept of getting people fed well is huge. And you can think back to the snacks that were being served, and it's like, again, 1970s when malnutrition was rampant, those snacks served their purpose. We now watch it evolve and go, are those still as valuable as they used to be? Or are there things that might be more valuable? And that's an important question to ask.
Absolutely. Could you imagine kids in the Head Start programs going out to pick their whatever they grew in the garden, and then the next day that's their snack?
It's incredible.
They're like, I did this myself.
Yeah.
That's so great.
That's huge. There's a self-efficacy in that. There's an invitation and exposure to that. There's an open-mindedness. It's that concept of wasati. What you see is all there is.
Yeah.
Well, kids that are being raised in environments where they don't see it, how could they ever know? And so if you're getting them good exposure to these types of things, they see it, which means it becomes possible. And that is, again, a beautiful initiative. And then it's just, well, how do you do it in a way that's meaningful and actually delivers the ROI we're hoping for? So obviously, fingers crossed, we continue to see more efforts that are aimed appropriately. Hopefully this is the first dollar over the bow that leads to more dollars. And like you said so well, regardless, it's to say we're going to learn some good stuff from this. So that'll be fun to kind of reflect on here in a year or so.
Yeah, I'm excited to see where this goes.
Yep, likewise. Cool. Well, now that we got that out of the way, we get to you get to put your dietitian hat on.
Ooh.
You get to be ready because now I get to just grill you for an hour.
Oh, this is very
You're like, that's not at all
turned.
what I signed up for. You're like, wait a second, you told this completely differently. No, as you know, I want to make sure we cover our core topics. I want to put you in the lead just because all of us as RDs, we spend a ton of time in session working with clients one-on-one, and we end up seeing things and saying things over and over. There's patterns, there's trends. There is benefit to the experience of being in the trenches the way we are. And one of my favorite things about the RD episodes is when I get to shift to more of the producer side and get to let all of you talk about your RD experiences, because we all share in those, but it's to say we all have slightly different. So definitely want to make sure we highlight that today for you. I'm excited. I know we kind of talked through some areas that we wanted to highlight. And so I'm going to kick us off with the first question. So we're going to do our commonly asked question as our starting point.
Okay.
And our commonly asked question this time is, am I getting enough protein as an athlete?
Yeah. I bet you are.
Probably.
You probably are. Now, there's different levels, right? Different athletes. Are you our weekend warrior type? Are you at a higher level? You're probably getting enough at every realm, but are we getting a little bit too much protein sometimes for our weekend warriors out there like me? Because protein's in everything, right? We have our protein brownies, our protein ice cream, our protein, all the things. Yeah. So sometimes it can be hard to maybe find a product without protein.
Yeah. It's kind of funny how, because there was a tendency in like a processed food-based diet to not have much protein, they started to put protein in, and then it instead of it being protein along with, it became protein instead of.
Yes. And
so we've watched it rapidly go from like, oh, you need to include your protein, to now it's like, oh no, it should just be protein.
Yes.
And slowly but surely, it's like you can sit down and eat a meal that is protein instead of carb, protein instead of fat, protein instead of protein. And you're just like, am I just eating a giant plate of random protein conglomerates? And
Sometimes you are. And that's not to knock protein for the athlete, right? Because we know how important it is for the tear and repair, essentially, when we're thinking of all the work that we're doing and the repair that our muscles need after the fact. So yeah, you're getting enough, but are you getting enough of the other things that your body also needs when you're putting that much strain on it in the athletic space, right? Whether you're a strength athlete, endurance athlete, whatever it may be, sometimes that's where the problem lies, right? We're getting enough protein, but then we still think we're not getting enough because of the emphasis that everyone puts on it.
Oh, I must not be getting enough protein. I must need more. I know you have a client story that when we were talking through this fun topic, because this comes up, am I getting enough protein? I mean, it's on social media. It's a common question in our office. We see it everywhere. And so I know you said you had a client. So maybe tell us that client story, and we can use that to kind of explain what we're talking about here, which is basically making sure you're hitting the sweet spot, right? It's the Goldilocks of it all. Not too little, not too much, because there is such a thing as too little. Absolutely. And a lot of people fall into that bucket.
For sure.
And then there is such a thing as too much. And I don't want to get down the rabbit hole of the kidney stuff, because when we say too much, we're usually not talking about that threshold. We're usually talking about you would be better off having some other nutrients. And so let's hear this client that popped up in your head with the protein trigger.
Yeah. So you can imagine being in the college football world, protein is a huge thing, especially with male athletes. So I had a male athlete once working on or wanting to switch his weight goals, we'll say. He was really working on weight gain. He had been pretty steady for a while. We did weight checks every day with them, and he wanted to gain. And he came to myself and the other dietitian who was working with the team at that point of, I just feel like I'm not gaining, I'm losing. And I don't know why, because I'm eating more, and that coincides, right? Eating more equals weight gain. Maybe so overall. So we did all the dietitian things, right? Like, what are you eating? How much of this are you eating? What's your protein intake? What's your carb intake? Little to find out that what he was increasing in his diet was the protein, right? Not much else on his plate besides the protein. I'm eating more protein at breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, all the other periods, like you said, replacing some of the carb with the protein, because that is just what's out there. And if you're trying to do it on your own, that's likely the messaging that you might see first. So we had all the fun things. Well, that's so great. We love that you're increasing your protein. Your body needs it, but what about the carbs? How much is this on there? What does that look like? And he was like, I'm not doing much with those right now. So we went into our deep dive of protein intake increase is going to be great, but for our weight gain goal, we're not really going to gain much with our protein intake, right? So we need to look at it from the carbohydrate perspective. So that's what we did. Again, we had so many other things going on with our carbohydrate, but what I like to use when I'm explaining that to a client and with him, what I did was I like to look at the performance plates there's the spectrum of the performance plates, our easy training, weight management, our moderate training, and our hard training plate. And if you're looking at all of those, what's the one thing on them that stays consistent and doesn't change on all three of those plates, right?
Exactly.
It's our protein.
Yep. Consistency.
Our protein amount is basically staying the same. And you could say on the easy training plate, if we're looking at weight goals and leaning out, right? It might be a little different there, but for the most part, they're staying consistent. What's the one that's changing the most? Or I guess you could say the two.
Yeah.
It's the carbohydrate.
Exactly.
From the easy training, where it's about 25%, to our hard training day, where it's going to be 50% or sometimes more of our plate than that. So we went through the cycle of, okay, we're not on our easy training cycle. We're on our hard training cycle mostly every day. And if some days we're scaling up from our hard training cycle. And once we kind of shifted that for him, he was like, wow, this really does make a difference, right? And you could see it in the daily weigh-ins and things like that after some time of scaling back the protein, still meeting his needs for what he was doing, but scaling up his carbohydrate intake to actually meet his needs there. Drastic.
Yeah.
Change.
I love it.
Yeah.
It's so funny because you realize too, so much nutrition advice out there is targeting people that are obese because we do have an obesity epidemic. And that is an energy conversation, energy in, energy out. And so a lot of times the nutrition advice is trying to find ways to reduce calories and also increase fullness and satiety. And that's where protein is the most satisfying of our things. It digests in our stomach. It sits really well. And so it can definitely drive that satiety. But it's also the macronutrient that doesn't actually store as glycogen like carbs does, or as fat like fat can and carbs can when there's an abundance. And so increasing protein radically to drive satiety and reduce overarching calorie and reduce likelihood of storage is a weight loss technique, but it's being misconstrued as a healthy way of eating. And so then you end up with these athletes that are trying to quote unquote eat healthy, but athletes need to be fueled so differently, right? Carbohydrates, 100%. As a reminder, right? They are the fuel that muscles use, especially at high intensity. And so you have these circumstances where I know I had a client, you see this over and over, but I had a client in particular one time that came in, and this is where like the danger of macros can come into play, particularly people that try and follow macro percentages. Because what will happen is, you mentioned your performance plate, the protein stays the same. It's like, hey, we got to make sure you're getting enough, and we got to make sure you're getting plenty. I won't even just say adequate. You should be getting plenty. But then we kind of keep that stable, whether we're cutting or bulking or maintaining or just trying to keep up with fueling. That amount of protein by gram is stable. And that means that if you're at a hypocaloric, hypercaloric, or isocaloric, that means that the percentage protein is going to be different. And so you can have 200 grams of protein and have it be anywhere from 15 to 35% by calorie of the total energy, because the other things are shifting up and down. And so that's where people get in these percent games, and they'll go from maintaining at 2,700 calories to bulking at 3,500, but then they'll keep the percent protein at 25%. And all of a sudden, instead of eating 200 grams, they're eating 270. It's like, that doesn't benefit you at all. The protein's meant to stabilize. I had a client one time that came in, and he had basically like copied the macros from a friend of his, and the friend was one, a giant human being, and two, was on anabolic steroids, and three, didn't actually know what he was doing. And so he came in, he's like, I've been eating 300 grams of protein and 200 grams of carbs, and I'm not gaining any weight. And it's like, your body's just like peeing out the extra protein. It's not storing it. So like, you're definitely maximizing the muscle. And it's the way I always said it, was like, you have all the bricks you need to build the wall, because the protein is the bricks, but the carbs are the bricklayer. And so you've got a very, very short staffed group building these walls. And so, yes, there's plenty of protein there. I was like, do me a favor, flip it for 2 weeks. Instead of 300 protein, 200 carb, let's try 300 carb, 200 protein. And he came back, he was like, oh my God, my maxes all went up. I feel so much better. I'm so much stronger. And it's like, and it's funny, we took his body comp, and his body fat percentage went down because his glycogen and his muscles went up. So his lean mass jumped from the muscles being more full of water and carbohydrates, which is what makes them more explosive. And he didn't have low protein needs. 200 grams of protein is an abundance of protein. And again, for his size human, it was not excessive. It was very normal. But it was just one of those where a lot of times the protein grows unnecessarily, and it's like, you might need to flip it. So if you're fatigued, if the power's not quite there, you might have a lot of bricks and not a lot of bricklayers.
Yeah, but can't we say that's also to the point of the messaging that carbs are bad?
Yeah.
And when people are turning to like Instagram or social media or just the content that they take in, and it's promoting like, replace your carbs with protein because carbs are bad, or carbs aren't going to help you. Kind of happens naturally, right? People are going to be scared of that. And a lot of individuals that I see now, the messaging when they come in is, yeah, my protein intake's really high, but I stay away from carbs, or I don't eat them often. Exactly. And it's like, okay, sure. Why?
Yep. Well,
right? Why?
And you can hear that overcompensation of a society of people that are eating 1,500 calories a day more than they need.
Yeah.
And those 1,500 calories are largely coming from carbohydrates and fats. You can hear where there's been, oh, well, like, you just get rid of the fats, or, oh, you just get rid of the carbs. And it's, well, no, you make sure you have appropriate amounts of both, because you need them for things, but you don't need too many of either of them. And so people have gone from too much carbohydrate to no carbohydrate. It's blaming the wrong villain, essentially, right? Carbs aren't the villain here. Caloric excesses. You can utilize carbohydrates appropriately given your circumstances. And that can be a much lower number for certain people given insulin resistance and other metabolic conditions. And so it's not a number that fits for everybody.
Not a one size fits all, right? As they say, nutrition isn't one size fits all.
But to see, like you said, the complete removal of carbs in a subset population that needs them the most, that's what, again, as an athlete, as a sports dietitian, that's what we see over and over is general education trying to basically reduce calories by reducing carbs and fat has led athletes to be averse to carbohydrates. And they're the people that it's not storing, it's going straight into the bloodstream and getting burned. It's literally gas in the gas tank. And so it's not having the same inflammatory concerns or any of those things because it's not associated with the actual mechanism of excess. And that's a really, you start to hear where it's like, that's a gray area that people need to open their minds to. But people have gotten so into, we can point at carbohydrates in chronic disease so easily because it is correlated. It's to say, yes, excessive amounts of carbs are a part of a diet that's excessive in calories that leads to all sorts of mechanisms in the body that can wreak havoc. But like, that doesn't mean that that's what happens in every circumstance. And so we've got to like, instead of talking about the general observation of what they're capable of, we've got to look at like, they're a tool in your toolbox, and given who you are and what you're doing, how do you need them? And I feel like dietitians are becoming like carb salesmen to athletes.
I totally am.
Yeah. Does that does that land for you?
Yes.
And it's hilarious because it's like, it's not necessarily a hill that like I feel like I want to have to die on.
But
like,
I will if I have to. And I feel like every consult I say like, I know carbs get a bad rap, but I'm here to like hype them up for you. And here's why you should love them too.
Yep. It's us. What's funny is it's us preaching the middle, which is to say, no, I don't think you need to be eating like obnoxious amounts that are not doing anything for you. But also that doesn't mean I don't think you should eat them at all. It's like, no, there's an appropriate amount and let's work on what that is. But that then has to come out in like short little whimsical blurbs that are marketing. So it's got to be like carbs are good. And then it's just, it's so weird to watch watch it. And again, as dietitians, we tend to be in the middle. We tend to be that synthesis of like, let's help you find your sweet spot. And sometimes people would rather live in the extremes than figure out their reality. So
all or nothing.
We're already in the carbs, which is an exciting thing. I got to make sure I don't go and look away from the mic too much. I've been known to do that. So we've got our commonly asked question, if we want to wrap that up, which is again, am I getting enough protein as an athlete? And it's probably yes. Let's double check.
Extreme circumstances, right? Like, are you injured? Are you recovering from something? Did you just get a surgery? Okay. Work with your dietitian, right? They're going to give what's specific for you so that you're meeting your needs. But more likely than not, every day, you probably are.
And we can take a peek at your diet and make sure. And again, if you're someone that's only eating one intentional protein source a day, then like, we're going to have a conversation.
Absolutely.
And so there are plenty of athletes that come in that actually are under proteined, but it's becoming less common. I think now we see more the people that are over proteined and under energized rather than under proteined and over energized. And so it's kind of almost like flipped to the other place, which is you still see both. And so it's worth making sure someone's not getting inadequate. But there's, like you said before, there's protein in everything now, which means it's kind of coming in. And if anything, it's kind of like, well, now that it's here, like, is everything else still here?
Right. Or you come in like, I don't think I'm getting enough protein. And then you're analyzing because protein is in most things that we're eating for the most part. And you're like, oh no, you're getting what you need, but you're lacking in this, or we need to improve this, right? So it's also that of, I think I'm not getting enough, but then you're not taking into account everything that you're eating that has those protein sources in it as well.
Exactly. The carbs just disappear. The fiber disappears. And all of a sudden we're saying, oh, we're not really getting the balance that we need to fuel our muscles and make sure our body's thriving. And so over and over, we see that where you've got to start to tweak it and make sure it's adequate. So to athletes out there, it's always good to double check, but it's to say, am I getting enough protein is definitely a good question, but it's better said of, am I getting enough protein and the right balance of nutrients given my needs.
Absolutely.
And so I'm happy that protein is a part of the conversation, but it shouldn't be the only conversation, especially in the athlete world, because yes, you need enough to recover, but bricks are only so useful if they don't have the brick layer.
For sure. So true.
It's fun. This kind of turns us right into the social media react. And I'm going to preface this because this is definitely, I've seen this a couple times, and it's less a trend and it's more I think what I'll call an experience within our subset as dietitians.
Yeah.
But I don't remember if it was your office or Raleigh that posted a pre-workout snacks list for like runners and athletes. And it was like meant to be like, it had like a variety of snacks. It had some quick ones and then it had some more intentional ones.
Yeah.
And one of the things on there was a Rice Krispie treat. And there was so many like DMs that came to me that were like, you're recommending Rice Krispie treats? And so that's the thing I want you to react to is, wait, you're a dietitian and you're recommending Rice Krispie treats in this vague, generic, open-ended way, like you're trying to like sell them. But go ahead, please tell us why you would ever recommend a Rice Krispie treat to somebody.
Well, first I want to say, why are you not recommending a Rice Krispie treat to somebody? Right?
Yes, exactly.
I know we're living in a time where processed food is looked at as not a friend of many, and we want to stay away from it. But again, if we're talking in the athlete realm, why would we not recommend them a Rice Krispie treat when more often than not, their carb needs are very high?
Yep.
And sure, they could try to meet them all with whole foods or other foods that are higher in fiber, but not always possible.
Yeah.
And mid-game, mid-run, think of a runner. What are they going to eat in the middle of a run if it's not a Rice Krispie treat or nerd gummy clusters? That is my personal favorite mid-run, right? Like, if we're strategically thinking about that, why would we not give a Rice Krispie treat where it's already in the simplest form that can be broken down and used almost instantaneously?
Yes.
Versus having something that then needs to be broken down and takes a while because it's a little bit higher in fiber. So the slower digesting carbohydrates in that realm. And then by the time we're done running, do we need it still? Yeah, but not in the way that we needed it prior to that.
Well, I love how you said that. It's so important to help people understand that food is tools in toolbox, right? And or puzzle pieces to put together as puzzle.
Yeah.
And there is a time when some of those things can be needed. And so I think where this is so conflicting for people goes back to general info. People are overeating, so we need to find a way to make them more full and have them eat less energy because they have too much energy. And also in the world of diabetes and particularly insulin resistance, it's, eat something sugary, blood sugar goes up and then stays up. That's bad. Don't let yourself do that.
Yeah.
Rice Krispie treat is something that raises your blood sugar. Well, let's zoom out for a second and remember that your blood is your superhighway that delivers nutrients to your tissue. So when you are mid-run, as you said, and your body is delivering sugar to your muscle cells in your legs so that those muscles can contract in the first place, sugar in bloodstream, good, not bad.
Right.
Insulin resistance is no longer a part of the conversation. Elevated blood sugar because of resistance is no longer a part of the conversation. Neuropathy and all the damage associated with those things, inflammation and all those pathways is no longer a part of that conversation. So this is where we can hear telling someone to just like eat a bunch of sugar and there's no reason for that much sugar to be on the highway. Sure, there's a conversation we need to have, but that's where this misses. You got a bunch of people that like actually need it right then, right there. And in that moment, if they ate oatmeal, they would just pass out because the sugar wouldn't get to their muscles in time to sustain the movement.
Yeah.
Sugar is instant energy. And so giving someone a Rice Krispie treat to spike their blood sugar before they go into something to do peak performance is a great idea. It's not just okay. It's actually the needed type of fuel in that moment.
Absolutely.
And you hear where this is in an attempt to blanket foods or even just give general advice is a better way to say that. It is very frustrating to watch in an attempt to give general advice. People focus on the what, like the food itself. And once again, the food is rarely the villain. It's typically how it's being used.
Absolutely.
And this is a perfect example of like Rice Krispie treats are getting villainized because we have an obesogenic society and a bunch of people that don't eat enough fiber, don't eat enough protein, don't eat enough fruits and vegetables, and tend to trend towards processed foods over and over. They're hyper palatable, they're hypercaloric, and they're not appetite regulating, so then they overeat. And that's the issue that compounds chronically over time. But like, that's not what we're talking about right now. We're talking about athletes, people that have insane energy output, intense energy burn, and more importantly, acute energy needs where the average person has enough body fat to go like 500 miles without stopping. But when you're exercising, you burn less than 50% fat. You burn at least 50, if not more, carbs. At max effort, it's 100% carbs.
Yeah.
And even if you have full glycogen stores, there's only enough carbohydrate to go about 2 hours. And so, yeah, if you have someone that's training intensely, it's like you're going to need to give them carbs along the way. And that's just not okay. It's actually necessary for this type of performance.
Yeah. And that also just made me think about, and this is maybe me going back into my own timeline of sidelines at games. You're not going to feed an athlete on the sideline of a game a full meal of something because they're not going to be able to tolerate it, right? Like their gut is not working at full capacity to digest in the same way that it was before the game or on a day where they're not working out. So why, again, like
the goal
why?
isn't satiety, right? You don't want the protein and fiber when they're in between plays on the sidelines or when they're in the middle of a run or a bike. Quite the opposite. Drawing slow digesting food to their stomach, which requires blood flow to go from the muscles to the stomach, will delay performance and make them throw up. And so it's
going to make them feel worse, and that's not the goal. The goal is to make them
give them energy
and perform
as easily
better
as possible.
Yes.
And that's, so it is, you just start to recognize what ends up happening is there are foods that people know are used during exercise, but then anytime you take a quote unquote like unhealthy food and use it like a cookie or a Rice Krispie treat or nerd clusters, any of that stuff, it's the same concept as if someone was using a power gel or some sort of other like what we'll call fueling sugar. It's the same idea. It's actually just more fun. Like I'd much rather a client eat a Rice Krispie treat than have some sort of random goo.
Yes.
They're both sugar. Both of them are easy to digest, which means the stomach isn't going to be overburdened, which is the point. And it's going to give them energy right then and there. Blood sugar in their superhighway straight to the muscle so the muscle can do what it does. These are fun ways to actually science is what that is.
Yeah.
But you start to realize when people have a negative response to it, they have categorized food as villain and their brain can't reconcile. It's like, it's a villain. You should never use that. And it's like, that is incorrect. It is to say that it is a food that is commonly used in a villainous lifestyle, which is to say there's a subset of behaviors that exist where it gets abused, but that doesn't make it the villain. It makes it the victim.
Absolutely.
And so I would just encourage everyone listening to be on the lookout for when you're deciding that the singular food is the villain instead of maybe the behavior around the food is the villain. It's a massive opportunity for ownership, and it's going to create immediate understanding of a gray area that most people just really can't get their heads around, and athletes have to grapple with.
Right. And like, what's the why behind it, right? Like if we're looking at it as villain or victim, do you know the why behind
why is it a villain?
Yeah. Why is it a villain? Or why are you choosing this at this time?
Yes,
right.
Exactly. You need to understand the tools. That's why I like to think of it as food is a tool in the toolbox, which is to say, sometimes you do need a screwdriver, not a hammer, but you also need to know the difference of when you need a screwdriver versus when you need a hammer. Same thing. Most foods are not good or bad. It's to say that they're not a hammer or a screwdriver. They're one or the other, and you can't hit nails, with a screwdriver. So it is to say that a lot of people need to better understand the nuance of food, but it's so much easier to just say, eat this, not that. That's 140 characters. So that's what spreads. And unfortunately, or I guess fortunately for us, we're here to help navigate the gray area for individuals.
Yeah. I
know for me, I'm a bit older than you, but Michael Phelps was always like what I'll call the athlete that I think invited this nuance, because when he was at his peak, like setting records for medals, he was like 6'4", 4% body fat. And I don't know did you ever see Michael Phelps' diet for I think it was the 2008 Olympics or 2012 Olympics?
I don't know that I did.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I mean. I was going to say, I think you're a bit younger than me. I think it might have been the 2012 Olympics where his diet got released because it was so wild. He got interviewed, I think by ESPN or someone. Don't quote me on where the interview was, but he got his diet interview, and he spent at that point about 6 to 8 hours a day in the pool. and he lifted twice a day. So he exercised 6 to 8 hours a day. And one, that means that when you fit food in is a giant question. And then also because food is likely near the pool or near the gym, what you can digest efficiently is very much a question.
Yep.
And so here's this dude that is like the visual pinnacle of elite performance, and he was eating some gross amount of. I mean, like I'm somewhere it was over. It was over 8,000. It might have been closer to 12. It was an insane number. But like his breakfast was like 4 McGriddles from McDonald's, and like his dinner at night was like a pizza and a 2-liter Pepsi. It got to the point where if you were going to get the calories necessary to swim 8 hours a day, you just needed calories that went down.
Yes.
And once again, he didn't have diabetes. And he still doesn't. He had 3% body fat. So that would tell us that he was actually, from a swimmer lens, swimmers are supposed to be 8 to 12% because fat is buoyant and it helps them actually like float a bit. So there's such a thing as too much where it's overly slows you. But there's also such a thing in the swimming world that's considered too little. So we would have looked at it and said, dude can't keep enough body fat on. Now there are some other like medical diagnoses and unique things about him that makes him like a leaner, more muscular human. So he's his own kind of stallion case study, if you will. But the concept remains true, which is he's an example of someone where you'd look at him and you'd go, he's the peak athlete. I bet he eats whole food, organic, burr. You know, the story that we tell ourselves. And it's like, no, dude was pounding McDonald's and Pizza Hut because he needed the energy. And it didn't stay on his body because it left his body before it ever had a chance to do anything other than be energy. And so it's just, I always loved that as like one of the best visuals of that. And that was pretty popular back in my day.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one though. But also recently.
Oh, good. Yeah, bring us up to speed.
Well, I don't think I meant it like that, but
it's fine.
It's very unintentional.
No, I'm 35
right
now.
there.
I'm over it. It's fine. I don't even care.
Recently I saw, and maybe recently is like a couple months ago, but I think it was the Baltimore Ravens were talking to their dietitian or their something was featured somewhere of how many like PB&Js they go through in a day.
The Uncrustables.
The Uncrustables, which if you're not using Uncrustables to fuel now, add them to your plan. Like, yeah, what are you doing? They're the best. But they eat an absurd amount. I forget if it was in a day, in a year, in a season, something. But whatever they were comparing it to was a crazy amount of Uncrustables. And I feel like the response to that was, Uncrustables? What?
Yeah.
Why? And again, same thing, like you probably would have never guessed that these high-level elite NFL athletes are eating as many Uncrustables as they are.
And it's because they just need the energy.
Yes.
And that is so opposing from what society is used to.
Yes.
Society, we're trying, again, it's the average American consumes 3,600 calories a day and needs 2,000 to 2,400. So the average person needs to reduce their intake by 1,200. So a 300 calorie Uncrustable that's just a bolus of fat and carbs.
Yep.
Doesn't make sense in their circumstance. But when you have someone who's active that has aggressive calorie needs, and then those calorie needs may be time sensitive, which is to say you need them in a circumstance where they can't occupy the stomach, you have no choice but to give easy to digest stuff that sits well.
Yeah.
And an Uncrustable is a perfect thing. I'll share personally one of the early nutrition pitfalls that I fell into before I was a dietitian. So this was like high school Andrew. Was I would have stiff-armed the Uncrustable, but I would have eaten the Cliff Bar.
Interesting.
Because an Uncrustable was like obviously unhealthy, right? It was a bad food.
Because of the bread?
Because of the bread and because of the sugar. But then a Cliff Bar is literally just a packaged sugar and fat. The macros are almost identical. Like one's 280, the other one's 300. One has 8 to 14 grams of fat. One has 11. Like their macro distributions are almost identical. And the hilarious thing is I probably, as a 16-year-old, the Cliff Bar was so much crappier. Like it didn't taste good. So like, well, this has to be healthy. Like it's not good. So it has to be good for you, right? And those are subconscious things you can unpack. Now we have people that are going to be even critical of the Cliff Bar.
Yep.
which was once again a bar for people on hikes so that they can get the sugar they need, but also something that digests in a satisfying way. So you don't have to stop walking. So the whole point of the Cliff Bar was eat this while you walk. It won't make your stomach cramp, but it will give you the energy you need. And so once again, another example of really cool thing built for a really cool reason.
Yeah.
But if you're kicked back at a desk as a part of a 12-hour sedentary day, do you need 38 grams of sugar and the flavor of white macadamia nut gritty cardboard?
Probably not.
I'd rather you eat real food that actually is satisfying both to palate and to stomach. But you can hear, once again, that's just another example of a food that's a puzzle piece. But I, in my brain as a 16-year-old, would have been eat this, not that. Pick the Cliff Bar over the Uncrustable, because in my brain, food science had clearly figured something out from a performance lens when it was really just convenient macronutrients. Uncrustables are convenient macronutrients. So I'll even throw myself under the bus and say, like, even my younger self definitely had some underlying assumptions that I understand where they came from, but when you actually excavate them, they're hollow and they actually are very, very misdirected.
You've come so far.
I've come so far. Who'd have thought one day we'd be where we are. So with that, why don't we kind of shift gears? Because I know that, within this, we kind of have sort of two pieces, right? We have our social media react, which was the hilarious Rice Krispy treat. Like, I mean, people were triggered.
I didn't know people
it was actually
hated
pretty
Rice
funny.
Krispie treats so much.
It's wild. Like, it's like, I'm going to unfollow you. You're trying to poison people. And it's like, wow, that's bold and very, very lacking in insight. But
to each his own.
Do you, boo-boo?
Yeah.
Let's shift over from our social media react to what we'll call our ingredient obsession, right? Which is to say we've already kind of excavated it, but I know you had said a term that I really liked and I want to prompt you with it. So when we were kind of chatting through this idea of like, what do you want to scream from the rooftop? You had brought up in our discussion, we talked about the role of sugar in athletes. And that's just kind of what I think we've done a good job. I think we've crossed that T and dotted that I. But you brought up the concept of purposeful snacking was your phraseology.
Yes.
And so let's go from the nerding that we just did. And so talk to me about purposeful snacking, which I think is inclusive of everything we just talked about, but maybe a bit more action oriented, which I'm hoping listeners can basically get some takeaways. Yeah.
Right. It can be purposeful snacking around exercise. Sorry, I'm watching Remy kind of like walk around right now, which I love.
She's getting into her little spot. Remy, sit. Pretty girl. Hello.
It can be like that around exercise, but more so when I like talk to people about purposeful snacking, whether it was in the like collegiate space or now just like everyday active individuals, how are we using that to meet our energy needs when they're higher than maybe someone who's not running on the weekends? Or I say running because I run often, so that's the only thing that I ever think about when it comes to working out. But like, how can we use that to get there, right? Because we probably could get there in our breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but does that make those meals maybe a little bit too uncomfortable and we get a little bit too full, and then we're not enjoying the space that we're in or the people that we're with, and it's taking away the purpose of the meal sometimes in terms of just social engagement in life and things like that. So often, or every day, really, I'll say like, well, let's build snacks into our day with a purpose, right? Typically, we're recommending, or at least I'm recommending, no more than like 3 to 4 hours between a meal or a snack.
Yeah.
That usually falls pretty solid with breakfast and lunch, right? Most people will say are having breakfast at 9-ish, lunch 12-ish. Yeah. So that's right in that 3 to 4 hour range. But lunch and dinner, that's could be
noon and 7,
noon and 8, and probably pretty hungry between then, right? Like your meal's not meant to last you 8 hours in terms of your fullness, your satiety, all of those things. So why would we not purposefully put a snack at like 4 p.m. if we know we're not having dinner until 8 p.m.
Yeah.
Or same thing, 3 p.m. if we're not having dinner until 6 p.m. So I always view it as that, or I'll say it as that. Like, why would we not do this so we're not hangry in the middle of the day, so our energy is not dipping while we're finishing off our work day and trying to get those final tasks done in the portion of the day that's already like, okay, day's almost over.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just making it along now. So I'm educating on how can we use the food groups, right? Our carbs, protein, dairy, healthy fat, fruits and vegetables. Or I like to just call it color because it makes it easier, right? It's all color. How can we use those to build a purposeful snack? Are we having at least 2 of those food groups
There you go.
at that meal or at that snack time, whatever you want to call it? And if you know your dinner or your next meal is going to be a little more delayed, that's when you add something else onto it. Or maybe your snack needs to be like a mini meal, right? For our athletes who need more energy, their snack might be more of a 4 food group mini meal than a 2 food group, I'm good kind of snack getting me to my dinner at 6 p.m. So it's how can we use that and know that, okay, yeah, we have our 3 meals a day. I don't like eating outside of that. Or I feel so restricted I can't eat after 6 p.m. But sometimes we need to, right? Like there's a purpose behind it.
Yeah, there are circumstances.
Yes.
It's fun. You can hear where sometimes snacks can be the bridge of a gap as an important thing. They can also be, to your point, if the person's exercising in the afternoon, right, they may be an important energy boost up to help improve the exercise. Or if they're training early in the morning and breakfast is at 9, we may need something at 6 a.m. that digests quickly and sits easy on a stomach that may not be ready for real, like more like real food. And this can cross from the athlete into the personal, where I love the purposeful snacking statement, because I think if you look at this from an athlete lens, to me, purposeful snacking is looking at your schedule and recognizing that food should be spread across the day in a way that energizes you, stabilizes you, and fuels you. Yeah. And that means you need to think about when you need to be exercising, which is to say, when should your stomach not be full, but there should be energy available, and when you have access to food. And so we would build a plan with an athlete that's going to feed them where it's like, okay, we'll get you 2 bigger meals on on these parts of the day away from your exercise, but then we need to kind of do small snacks. And that's where the Michael Phelps example was so cool, because he ate constantly all day, but it's because he was in and out of the pool, but the things he had to eat to get back in the pool right after, those had to be more snack-like. So you got the athlete where we're building it around their performance and their need for energy, but also their need to like offset digestion strategically. And then I think you have the general pop where it almost solves a different problem. We have a society of people that just honestly just openly snack and eat, right? So I always say one of my favorite things is pick a number of piles. I don't care if the number of piles is 2, 4, 6, 8. I just want to pick one and kind of aim at it, because a lot of times people just eat whenever they feel like it, which is not the same to say they're eating when they're hungry and pausing and making time. It can be just an emotional response. It can be a subconscious boredom response. Like there's eating anytime is not the same as eating intentionally. And so, or intuitively for that matter. And so what's worth noting is like you have the Gen Pop where there's almost like, because of the fasting world, it's like this anti-snacking. And I would say that that's meant to help you be aware of anti-grazing, which is like you really shouldn't be just open-ended eating at all times. There should be intentionality. The reason being that there's such access to food that if you're open-ended eating, you're just always going to eat. So you're going to eat from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m., which is like just abundant, especially if you're not somebody that's burning and burning and burning. So purposeful snacking, I think, is the appropriate correction as opposed to the overcorrection for people to go from snacking and eating all the time to eating 1 meal a day as an intermittent fasting strategy. That seems like an overcorrection. But someone to go from eating anytime to, no, I'm going to eat a breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And then I also, based on the times that those tend to be, an afternoon snack makes sense. And then I'm going to make sure that snack isn't just some random afterthought at the vending machine, but it's actually, to your point, 2 things paired together with intention that's going to taste good and also feel good. We can hear where the intention behind it is actually what makes it more valuable. And I'll even say that for most people, the benefits of intermittent fasting are less the actual metabolic hack that is the fast. And it's more that it's them choosing to structure their food in a way that creates consistency. And so whether they did the 2 meals or they did the 3 meals and a snack, that isn't really the bigger predictor of success. It's actually the fact that they're planning then the 2 meals or the 4 meals. And so I love your purposeful snacking, because snacking is not bad. It's to say that it is a tool to be used intentionally. And a lot of people don't even do it consciously. That's the bigger problem. Is it's the David Wansink book, Mindless Eating, where it's just like, we can just crunch and munch and crack and crisp like behind the scenes And it's astonishing how much you can eat when that happens. It adds up in a way that's like pretty wild. And also you don't receive like satisfaction signals from it. You don't feel like satisfied mentally or physically. And so you end up with like habits like that. And once again, the overcorrection. You can see our society's tendency to overcorrect.
Yeah, one of my favorite things to do with anyone is create a fueling timeline. Whether we're trying to fit food in around workouts or we're trying to fit food in around our busy workday and just busy overall lifestyle, because life is busy for everyone.
Beautifully said.
I will take any person through like, okay, start me at the beginning of your day. What time's breakfast? Okay, lunch, dinner, great. What times are those at? What do we need to fit in there, right? And some of that purpose behind it is, okay, well, you always work out or go to the gym or run before breakfast in the morning. You're not having anything before, why not? There's a purpose behind it versus, oh, I'm not hungry or that's too early in the morning. I can't do that. Well, it's like, no, like let's put it in there because there's a purpose. Even if you're not hungry, this is why you're having it. So I'll take them through their day and they'll leave a session with their customized fueling timeline of like, here are the times that we're having our 3 meals and 3 snacks, we'll say. And then we'll put recommendations or ideas in of like, okay, what snack fits here based on what comes next? Or they're having nighttime snack, like what are some options before bed that we could be putting in there? So we're like building it together of, here's your day, here's a sample. Do you have 2 different style days? We'll make 2 different style fueling timelines, right?
Exactly.
Like we're fitting it to their schedule.
I love it.
Time restriction for intermittent fasting or not. That timeline is going to be the same.
Yeah, I call it a food flow. Same idea, right? It's just like, let's go through your day and let's get a food flow. And consistency of food flow, some people are going to have different schedules, just mean different food flows, but that's not in itself a bad thing. The idea is you go into your day with an idea of how you're going to support yourself throughout that day.
Yeah.
And even what you noted about I can't eat that early, that even in itself, like there's not one answer to that, right? It's to say, okay, well, that may be because of your current busted food flow. If you're someone that's under eating all day and then you're overeating at night and then your stomach feels like crap, you're waking up nauseous, the snack you don't want to have in the morning is because of your current food flow. Yeah. So let's update and try this new one and let's see how your body acclimates, noting that, that morning snack could be a Gatorade before a bike ride. Like it doesn't have to be even food. It could just be, and it may just be electrolytes because there's plenty of carbs the rest of the time. But there's so much diversity and uniqueness to it. But that's the whole point is let's look at the human in front of us and what their needs are and let's try and fuel them in a way that flows with their life. Quick dietitian tip. Almost nobody has one food flow.
No.
Most people, it's a weekday, weekend food flow. Most people have a travel food flow. Most people have like what I'll call like seasonal and like special occasion food flows. And so it's not something that's 365 days a year, but it's probably 200 days a year. You have your like home food flow, kind of set up based on how you work and what time you do the things. And then from there, that's one of my favorite things is to work with people to find their like subset food flows. Like, month 1, we do the food flow for Monday through Friday, and then it makes them see how their weekends are all over the place. So then you build a food flow with them for the weekend, and then that feels good. And then a holiday comes and they go travel and they have a completely different, they tend to snack and graze while they're in the car driving to Michigan. And then it's like, okay, well, let's talk through what that looks like. And over time, people start to develop confidence in their ability to navigate their days with food as support. And that is a big, big step towards becoming the healthier them, which is always one of my favorite things.
It's also showing them that it doesn't have to be overcomplicated, right? I think a lot of people that we see come in thinking it has to be this big, tough thing that we need to be doing to
all the math,
like meet our needs or like be the healthiest us. But more often than not, I'm working with them to simplify the things that they're doing. Because the complicated version doesn't stick in the food flow, in the day, and whatever. If it's not simple and fitting into what you're doing,
it's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. You're not going to stick to it. And then more often than not, you're getting frustrated that you're not meeting your goals. And then you're just like, oh, whatever.
Blaming myself. I just need to do this. I just need to do this. It's like, and you said it so well. a good simple food flow that clicks in the back of the mind is going to be something that someone doubles down on when life gets weird, as opposed to the first thing they abandon. So for those listening, if you have a pattern you try and stick to and the moment life gets a little stressful, you disappear from it, that's actually the thing that needs tweaked. And that means that the flow is not actually integrating into your subconscious, which means something about it is not quite right. It isn't necessarily a willpower issue. It's probably a fit issue.
For sure. And I also like to call that like my bare minimum nutrition list. So I'll like build that with clients too, of like, okay, life is really stressful right now, or everything's getting a little bit too much. I can't do anything, right? Okay, sure. I hear you. I understand life is stressful, but what are those like bare minimum things that you want to make sure that you're including every day, if nothing else, and they're still making you feel good about you or wherever you want to be right now, right? Mine are like, making sure that I'm hydrating. I always carry my water bottle with me. Like I told you earlier, my emotional support water bottle is always right next to me. So that's one of mine with the pit sticker on it. And making sure that I'm having at least like 2 real meals in a day, right? Some people might think that's low, but like if that's all I can handle on a day where things are overwhelming, that's also better than nothing, right? Better than nothing. And then just making sure I'm getting outside. That's not really nutrition, but sometimes sunlight can make sure that like changes people.
Yeah, we're all just complicated plants.
Yeah, we really are just complicated plants. But
I remember reading that one time and I was like, yes, I feel very seen by this. And no notes.
Yeah. So like if you're trying to figure out what is going to work for you, what are those things that are non-negotiables, that are bare minimum, you want them in your plan? That's where you have to start.
Yeah. I love that. That is such a good thing because then you can practice that bare minimum baseline. And that's the floor that you can fall to when life gets crazy. And what's nice is then we can over time tweak that and raise that floor. But that it doesn't have to be perfect. You can already hear where a big piece of what we do as coaching is we help people aim up, but then we also help them like shape up over time with it. Like it's not just a follow this and it works all the time and you have to be super neurotic. It's like, no, use this as a baseline, aim at it. Let's identify when it isn't working. Let's troubleshoot. Let's tweak those things. And over time, you will become more and more confident navigating the sway that is your day-to-day life. Like it's not as straightforward as people want it to be because their lives aren't as straightforward as they think they should be. It's like, you know, everyone, when things slow down, I'll get started. It's like, okay, you're going to start when you're in your grave. Life don't slow down.
Probably doesn't slow down, but also you want people to know that like your food flow, your fueling timeline, that's not your bare minimum list most often than not.
That's
right?
a great clarity point. Yep.
That's your ideal day is what you're fueling.
That's the aim up.
That's the aim up. The bare minimum is making sure that there's something over nothing.
Yeah. It's choosing a C over an F.
Yes.
Which, by the way, always a great decision.
C's get degrees.
I hope that isn't who we've hired, but
that's just what they say. That's just what they say.
Yeah. I love it. But yes, no, that is so perfectly stated. Is like if we have this A that we're aiming for, that's awesome.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like you're not going to hit it all the time. And if your brain is, well, if I can't do that, screw it, then you're screwed, unfortunately. And so it is. It's sometimes setting the bar high, but then also setting the floor higher than it is. And that creates a consistency that is higher, right? That is, there's a difference between, you know, getting between a 0 and a 50 and getting between a 50 and a 100. Like it's going to accumulate to your advantage better. So that is, it's aiming towards getting your grades up as a way to think about it. If we're going to use that analogy, it's like, you're not going to just suddenly have a 4.0. Like you are going to have to study and tweak some things and probably get some tutoring, and slowly but surely you're going to get better and better at it, and better grades are going to follow. Health is a constant. It's a constant game of tug of war, but it's also something that really does take effort to like actually master. Right. And it's because it's constantly evolving. That's the other piece, is like you get good at your current reality just in time to be introduced to a new reality. So but we're here for all of it, which is fun. Yeah. So I love that. That is an awesome baseline and also a really nice segue for I think what we're going to do next, which is one of my favorites. I've enjoyed this with the RDs. It's the scream it from the rooftops, right? And I kind of primed you with this before, but I'll say it the way I've said it to a lot of the dietitians when they come on. It's like, hey, every day you're in the trenches working with your clientele one-on-one. Obviously, we do speaker sessions, we do corporate wellness events. Like we get to go talk to groups, but mostly we're doing one-on-one and small group. So here we are sitting in this podcast studio, and the things that you feel like you say over and over, or the thing that you feel like, man, if I could just tell everybody this, the world would be a better place. I haven't gotten to the point where it's the world, but we're at a point where like 10 to 20,000 people will hear what you're about to say.
Yeah.
And so instead of the one-on-one, what's the thing you want to scream from the rooftops?
There's not just one definition of healthy.
There we go.
think-
Yes.
Yeah. There's multiple, many. Everyone probably has their own definition of what healthy is to them.
Yeah.
Right?
Ask 20 people, you'll get 20 definitions.
Yeah. And sure, there's like the definition of healthy that we both learned in school and in our dietetic internship that they're saying, and the dietary guidelines have that definition of healthy, right? Which is the standard ideal. But I think we've talked a lot today about how there's a purpose behind all of the things that we're eating, and there's a why behind why we're maybe strategically choosing some things versus others in certain points. So why do we have to say that healthy is only one thing and then make people who don't fit into that category feel like they're unhealthy?
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. I think a lot of people are, to your point, they end up using someone else's definition of healthy, and it doesn't click, and it's not quite clear.
No.
And to be fair, there are common metrics that can be a part of most definitions.
Absolutely.
But it is to say that it's really important for people to step back and be like, my health is my what? Is
Yes.
it my energy, stamina, longevity, quality of life, hope for quantity of life?
Yeah.
So then the question is, okay, what are you doing for those things?
Right.
And I don't think people zoom out about their health often enough. I
No.
think we it's so much easier to just focus on what. So it's like, well, I don't eat this food. And it's like, that's
Okay.
really zoomed in. But when you zoom out, what is it actually doing to your health?
Yes.
And is it actually improving those bigger metrics that we just talked about?
Yeah. And I'll ask my clients that when they come in. They're like, I just want to be the healthiest me, right? What does that mean to you? What does healthy mean to you?
Yeah.
And I somehow got on this topic with my friends one night when we were all hanging out of healthy and unhealthy and what's the definition of healthy. And all of us said something different.
Yeah.
I said something different. Someone else said something different. Someone else said something different. And then they came back the next week and said, I've been thinking about this more. And I think there is a right and a wrong definition. And he told me what his thoughts were. Like, some foods provide more nutrients than other foods. So yeah, some might be better to eat than others. And like, yeah, I mean, you're not wrong about that, right? Like, we know there are foods that are providing more of certain nutrients than other foods are providing of certain nutrients. But again, they all have a purpose. So,
And if you already have enough of the nutrient it's providing, does getting more of it make you healthier?
right. So
Because there's such a thing as too many nutrients.
exactly. But you can see in that tiny subset of like
Yeah.
5 or 6 people, we all thought something different, but none of us were wrong, right? We were all right in our own belief of what makes us healthy
Yeah.
and the overarching. So, yeah, if you think healthy is one thing and your friend thinks something different, that's awesome.
Yeah. There's frame of reference in
Yeah.
that. There's human experience in that.
Yes.
It's a fun opportunity to invite people to actually step back and think about, like, so what is their, well, we'll say off the cuff definition in their mind? Because it's probably very revealing, right?
For sure.
It's going to reveal education and social influences and expectations of internally and externally. Like, it's not going to be a declarative, objective thing. It's going to be a
No.
highly subjective thing.
Yes.
And that's why when I said what I did, it's like, if you try and zoom out, like when we say health, what are we actually saying? And it's like, well, we're saying individual flourishing and thriving.
Yep.
Well, what does that look like? Well, that's a human that's able to do like a lot of things, right? Be able to think clearly, move clearly, do all sorts of good stuff.
Yeah.
But also over a period of time and with some degree of autonomy. But it's like there's a social aspect, there's a psychological, there's a physical. I mean, there's a lot of components. That's where, you know, you and I studied the biopsychosocial model of care, and it was the Venn diagram of the social, the psychological, and the biological. And in the
Yeah.
middle of the Venn diagram was the word health.
Yes.
And it's like, yeah, that's a cool concept to recognize that health isn't just a physical thing. It's not just objective. It's also
Right.
psychological, which means there's an emotional component. It's sociological, which means there's a basically like a, again, I'll say it stupidly, a social component. But that is to highlight that we are connected creatures and human connection is important. We are thinking creatures, which means thought and sense of self and all of those things are important. And then there's a biologic component.
Yeah.
Most people health is too zoomed in. And as a result, it ends up being this like awkwardly rigid definition that if you zoomed out. So like one of my favorites, because the friend you just mentioned reminds me of like in its extreme, that's like a Paul Saladino, the carnivore MD. He's like one of my like least favorite internet personas, because he is so in the weeds that he like doesn't actually think about the bigger picture, right? So he's so focused on, what I like to say is, he'll look at a research study that was a 6-week thing, and then he extrapolates it and assumes that it's going to be better longer without any data that would suggest that. So it's taking short-term data and confusing it for long-term potential. But one of the things that will commonly happen is it's the focus on a micronutrient. And it's, okay, well, what's that going to do? Well, it's going to give me more nutrients. Okay, but do you not have enough nutrients? No, I already have the nutrients. Okay, so what's it going to do? Well, I'm just going to have more of them. It's like, okay, is that advantageous? It's like, well, not necessarily. It's like, okay, so then what's going to happen because you have more of it? Are you going to live longer? Are you going to think more clearly? Are you going to be stronger? Are you going to be more intelligent? Like, what is the actual outcome you're going to get from this? And if the answer is, I have it just to have it because I can have it, that is not health.
No.
Right? That is so detached from actual health. And so I would love to sit down with a Paul Saladino and actually look at some of his like biggest, like die on the hills and go, what are you claiming to get from this? Are you going to live to 120? 150? Are you going to be like doing CrossFit at 90? Like, what is the actual metric? What is the actual outcome that you are so excited about that you claim this is going to do? Because it's, spoiler alert, it's detached from all of those things.
Yeah.
It's health is an interesting word. So I'm glad you bring this up. And it's fun that you did the experiment with your friends.
It was so unintentional. I did not intend, I don't even remember how we got started on that, but probably had a client earlier in the day or the week where we were talking about health, and then they sparked something and I was like, well, might as well pull this group too, because it's so not outside of the clientele that I see at the moment, but just a different group of people.
Yeah.
And I know they're all going to say something different, and they did.
Yeah. I think what I'd love is like, I think it's important, any listener, I'd encourage you to ask, like, when you say you want to be healthier, it'd be really important to get to know what that means.
Yes.
And actually think through that and describe that. What does that look like? Like, actually, like, really dig into it. And then from there, two things will happen. One, you'll get clarity on like your actual feelings and definition versus what might be some external pressures. And to be fair, some external pressures may be, I'll call them tough truths, right? Which is like saying like, I don't want to have chronic disease. It's like, that's an understandable tough truth that there are certain lifestyle decisions that will make that infinitely more likely.
Yeah.
So like some of it's going to be tough truths that are for you, and others are going to be like, my mom was obsessed with nutrition when I was a kid and I had poor modeling around relationship with self and body. And it's like, that's an external truth that's probably not for you. And so if you can excavate your definition of healthy, which I will note, every person that works with one of our dietitians does this. This is just an important piece of who we are. That expectation versus reality of what we actually do. It's like we help people understand what health means to them, what that looks like, and then we help them get to know that person, which is healthier them from a place of clarity. But I'd encourage people to journal it. And then what I'll say is once you do, you may have better visibility of what you need to help support your health journey. It may reveal that there's more of a psychological gap to your health, which means something like a therapy may be useful or a coaching. You may find that, the core nutritional components or the core lifestyle habits, stress, sleep, fit, move, eat. If those are the things, then coming to a dietitian is going to be a really, really good idea. If there's social anxieties or there's social pressures or there's loneliness or there's isolation or whatever there is there, that may be something that you work with a practitioner with, but it may be also an invitation to get involved in things that you have interests in so that you can meet like-minded and similar people with overlapping interests. And so getting clear on your definition may also help you. It may help reveal the things that would help you basically move towards that definition in a more intentional way.
Absolutely. And that definition is so personal.
Yeah. I mean, I'm hoping that we're just giving a glimpse of the variability that could exist across, that could still be objectively true.
Anything you write on that paper, that journal entry, don't think it's right or wrong that you're writing it down, right? Like, it's important to you for a reason. You're writing it down for a reason. Yeah. So
It's also allowed to evolve over time.
absolutely, it can change.
There's different seasons. You may find that certain buckets become more and less important over time.
Yeah.
They may ebb and flow. And to be fair, they may need to. That's something that I find I have to work with a lot with my new moms, where it's, someone that had a really intense fitness identity. And then they go through a period of carrying baby and then breastfeeding and then taking care of baby with limited sleep. And it's not to say that we just say like, screw exercise, it doesn't matter anymore. But it is to say that it's going to look different. There's going to be modifications. There's going to be considerations. And if you're comparing 9 months pregnant you to peak athlete you in terms of like squat, you're probably going to be a bit disappointed.
Absolutely.
But like that's also completely the wrong metric of well-being in that state. And it's that can be an example of like an identity that may need to have some allowance, have some evolution. Also worth noting that like that may come back. There may be a desire and drive that returns to be the power lifter or to be the elite athlete of some kind. Or it may be that exercise goes from being this massive hobby to being a habit that has some joy in it, but is no longer a habit and a hobby. Those are examples of knobs turning with life that is very valuable and also an important thing. I think a lot of people come to us to start their health journey, but I think also a lot of people come when they've had massive change in life and it's basically fractured their prior definition to their current reality. And sometimes it's helping them almost like step into that a bit more. Like health looks different now. That's not a bad thing. That's actually a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I've seen that a lot with like transitional athletes, like out of college into the real world. We're not going to the next level or the pro level. We're just becoming a human.
Yeah.
I guess, as a basic way to say it, right? Some still have a great relationship with working out. Some are like, I never want to see a weight room again.
Yeah.
And either way, reality's changing, right? Their energy demands are changing and their relationship with everything is changing. So
Facts. Yep.
Same thing.
Same idea. Nutrition through the life cycle. It's one of our favorite things.
Favorite class.
I like that. That was a good scream from the rooftops. Well, you got through it.
I
You
did.
survived it. We did the thing. Went
That's
pretty
great.
quick, right?
Yeah.
I love it. Well, everyone listening, thank you again. As always, please like this, subscribe, share, do all the things to help us meet more people and help more people. We really appreciate the audience. And I've really enjoyed doing this. I think you know that. This has become one of my like favorite parts of what we do. So Sina, thanks for coming up and making the time to do this with me and scream from the rooftops and share some fun stuff. I hope everyone found this valuable. If you want to meet with one of our dietitians, remember on our website, we do have a dietitian match. You answer 5 questions. It matches you with the right RD for you across our 10 offices and 25 plus RDs. And so don't be afraid to be a friend. We'd be happy to connect with you there and have a wonderful rest of your month. Keep an eye out for clips.
Yep.
And until next time, be well.